How we all getting along today? Well, over the past winter, the wife had grown an affection for what they call sea glass. Not too familiar with it myself, but we packed up the old go-kart and made a trip to the Gulf Coast and drove about 3,000 miles round trip for a handful of sea glass. We tromped around on beaches all over the place and finally was successful at Dolphin Island. But I thought the labor and expense involved wasn't equal to the reward. So I got to thinking, if the wife gets this bug again, how can I get ahead of this? So I came up with an experiment and willing to subject myself to, this experiment and sheer punishment. I'm going to try to make sea glass at home. So the first step, I had to force myself to drink enough alcohol to produce the bottles for the said experiment. So it took me a while, but I was able to get a 5-gallon bucket full of crushed glass and just random wine bottles and whatever else I could get in my hand at the time, and tasted good. So I've got those crushed up and got them in my giant size rock tumbler. If y'all had never seen my rock tumbler before, check back on some of the previous videos where I built this. It's kind of interesting, and the darn thing works really good. But as most of my ideas, some of my ideas are genius and some of them are pure shit. The idea of the plastic wheels for rollers was pure shit. You can't drill a straight hole in plastic. So as you can see, there's an upgrade on this one where I cut these out of a 2x12 with a 6-inch hole saw and then turned them down in the lathe to true them all up, so she runs much better than she did with the plastic wobbly wheels. So back to my story. So I've got my little drum here full of 5 gallons of crushed glass. I was too cheap to buy sand, so I went down to the creek, my favorite rock hunting spot, and shoveled me up a 5-gallon bucket full of the best looking sand that Lincoln Creek can provide. I know it's got some pebbles in it and some trash and probably a beer tab or two, but I think it'll work. So I got 5 gallons of crushed glass. I've got about a gallon and a quarter or so of sand in there, and I added a couple gallon of water, and we're going to button this bad dad up and throw it on the tumbler and just see how she turns out. I may be onto something. This may save guys a fortune and a lot of time wandering around on the beach looking for sea glass that could be spent doing other more productive things, say fishing, metal detecting, rock hunting, anything but hunting sea glass. So bear with me, and this is step one. We're going to throw this thing on and let it run for about a week, and I'll let you know how it turns out. Y'all have a good one. Well, we're back. It's been a week for the glass running here in the tumbler. The new wooden wheels that I made for the tumbler worked out great. Totally happy with that. Works much better than the rubber wheels. Also did change out the guides for the tumbler. For the barrel, changed them over to some roller bearings right there. Got those at Harbor Freight for $1 a piece. I think they're going to work a lot better than just those plastic guides I had in there. Well, I'm going to shut this thing down, break into it, and see how the glass turned out. I'm not going to bore you with seeing me wrestle the 50-pound drum up out of there and run it through the classifier, but I've got the classifier set up, got a 3/8 screen in it. I'm going to try to dump the sand out and see if I can separate the glass from the sand. I'll let you see how she turns out in a minute. Well, I got her parts of the way dumped out, and I'd say my experiment is somewhat successful. It's got an opaque look to it. It's no longer translucent. I think I did need to bust up in a little bit smaller pieces. I've got some pretty good sized chunks in there that probably look better busted up, but there's no longer any sharp edges anywhere. Got nice rounded corners. Got kind of that hazy look. That one's kind of neat. I don't know what that was. So I'm going to call it successful, but I am going to throw it back in for another couple days and just let it run. I'm going to probably bust up them bigger pieces. Go ahead and let them polish up a little smaller. But I think it's successful, and maybe it'll keep Mama from trying to drag me down to the ocean. Did just come back from a little trip. went down to Arkansas, went down to the Ron Coleman and the Jim Coleman crystal mines. If you haven't been there looking for quartz, I recommend you go. Both of them successful places, both of them nice. One of them's a little bit off the beaten path, but had the place to ourselves, so I can't argue with that. Daughter skunked me, or showed me up anyway. Don't know about skunk, but man, she brought home some nice crystals. Some 3-4 inches long and a couple inches across. Really nice. I'll try to get some pictures of them and throw them in a later video. Well, I'm going to dump all this back in the tumbler and get her back to rolling. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.